Honestly, some hot chocolate sounds kind of nice right now. It's kind of late. I don't really want to make coffee or anything that's going to keep me up for half the night. So some hot chocolate would be nice. Anyways, guys, welcome back to Please Be Happy. We are having a late night conversation with Juliet, who is inviting us to have some tea or some hot chocolate, whatever we prefer. And let's see how that goes.
Sure. Be right down.
A warm drink sounds nice right now. Not wanting to leave my cozy blanket, I decide to hold it tightly around myself and waddle down to the kitchen with it. The stairs prove a little difficult, but I manage. There are already 2 mugs sitting on the table when I arrive, and the kettle is already steaming. As I take my seat, Juliet pours boiling water into each cup.
You knew what I was gonna say before you even asked me, huh?
I had a feeling, yes.
She pushes my mug across the table, my hands peek out from the blanket to cradle it. Happy for the warmth, I hold the mug for a while before tasting the steaming hot chocolate inside.
Mmm. I like the hot chocolate you make even better than the stuff at the Bell House.
Miho has some favoritism for Juliet over Aspen. Interesting.
Why, thank you. I'm happy to hear that. Although I imagine Aspen wouldn't be.
Yeah, don't tell her that.
Do you ever go there? Now that I think about it, I'm surprised we've never gone together.
I don't know, I would imagine it's not open for very late when it comes to the evening, so...
We haven't. Well, why don't we change that sometime then?
Oh. Julia, you want to go out on a date with Miho? Okay.
Perhaps we can meet Aspen for breakfast there instead.
Oh,
It has been a
good
while
breakfast.
since I've stopped by.
Sure! I've never gotten any food from there. Only drinks.
You're in for a treat then. They serve delicious pastries and sandwiches. There's a particular one that I know Aspen enjoys. Although, I can't remember what it was.
That's okay. I'm sure I'll be fine with anything they have. I can't remember the last time I tried something that I didn't like.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've had a lot of better food items since you've, learned to stay in your human form and make friends. I feel like raiding convenience stores for food that just sits on the shelf all day probably wasn't very nutritious or very appealing.
That must come in handy when traveling the world so much, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Can't afford to be picky when you don't know the next time you'll even have options.
Have you found a favorite food? Or type of cuisine that you most enjoy?
What do I think Miho would enjoy? I don't know, I think she would enjoy something Asian. I mean, she's from Korea, so I would imagine maybe something from her homeland.
Not really. Most of the time, I just eat junk food or leftovers. Not really anything fancy.
Understandable. If there's ever a certain dish or meal that you'd like to try, it would be my pleasure to help make that happen.
I don't know, I wonder if she would like japchae or something Korean, like Korean noodles, or maybe she'll like maybe something more Japanese, like udon.
Perhaps we could even learn to cook it here at home, so you could have it any time.
Ooh, that would be a fun, nice activity for them to do together.
Sure!
I toss that onto the mental pile of if there's ever anything that Juliet's offered me. I know she means well, but at this point I can't remember everything she said that about. The 2 of us continue to chat for a while, and I recount the full day's events with the elemental to Juliet, wrapping up my story at the point where I came home from the river.
Oops! That reminds me. I never put away the wagon. Let me know where it goes, and I can take it upstairs when I go back to my room.
Wagon? Oh, yes. Yes, of course.
Juliet quickly looks away, takes a sponge and busying herself cleaning off some loose sugar off the counter, and it's obvious that something's off. I wonder what significance that wagon has. Not sure what to do. It's so rare that Juliet's the one who seems uncomfortable. In fact, that's the only time I can think of. Other than when I first met her, of course, when I sort of tried to steal that painting.
By the way, who does all that stuff belong to? The wagon and the toys, that is. Were they part of the library children's section before or something?
I don't know. I'm wondering if they're a part of her childhood, maybe? I'm not sure.
No, they were personal possessions, not part of the library.
Oh, like from when you were a kid? I'm surprised you managed to keep them for that long then.
No, not my childhood.
Not your childhood. Is she implying that she's had a kid? Maybe she became a vampire after she had a kid, and the kid just kind of grew up. Huh. Okay. I want to keep reading. I'm curious.
Huh?
I've noticed that this game does have some, like, more... I don't want to say... I don't know if I would call them adult topics, but they're definitely not kid topics, right? Like, we're talking about, you know, two parents who are separated and trying to work that out and figure out how to, like, best take care of their child with Tommy, right? I don't know. I'm really curious to know what's going on with Juliet. Sponge stops moving, Juliet's shoulders slumping as she gives up trying to work. I feel a little bit bad for making her act so oddly.
If you don't want to talk about it, that's totally fine. Sorry. I didn't know it was sensitive. I'm really, really sorry.
It's fine. You couldn't have known. Besides, perhaps it's only right that you know.
I mean, if you're comfortable with that, I would really like to know. I'm very curious now.
Know what?
She turns back towards me, taking a breath before she continues. Her eyes don't look at me, though. They look past me.
Do you remember when, several weeks ago, I told you that I met someone who changed my life? Someone who made me want to be a better person?
Yeah.
Well, her name,
Oh.
my daughter's name, is Cosette.
You have a daughter?
Okay, so she does have a daughter. Or a child, at least.
Yes, and she's been the biggest blessing in my many, many years of life. Although she's not of my own flesh and blood, she was my child.
Okay, so she didn't have a child, but she essentially raised a child, is what I'm guessing.
I found her on my doorstep one morning, tucked into a basket with a blanket and scarf around her. It was cold that morning, so very cold. When I opened my door and saw the silent bundle there, I feared that she was dead. But she was not. She was so very alive, and despite the cold, so very, very warm. She was barely a year old, if that. Yet she didn't cry. She could have been there all night for all I knew, but she never uttered a sound. I brought her inside, of course, just so she wouldn't freeze. Beyond that, I was panicked and confused. I'd never wanted a human child. I didn't even know how to raise one.
Okay, I was definitely wondering, because I'm like, that would have had to have been before she became a vampire. I'm just assuming that vampires in this world can, like, kind of like how other vampires, like, if you bite them, you know, like, you can turn someone into a vampire, right? So maybe it was something like Twilight. I'm sorry, I have to use Twilight as an example again. Where Twilight, like, where you, like, freeze at the age that you are, right? So, like, she could have been, you know, like, 20, right? And, you know, she had a kid, and then she got turned into a vampire or something like that, and then she just kind of lived at that point. But the only problem I have with that theory is that she's, like, hundreds of years old. I mean, would they have had a wagon that long ago? I don't know.
To this day, I don't know why whoever abandoned her chose my doorstep to leave her on. Of all places.
I mean, to be fair, she could have had a child after becoming a vampire. I don't know how that would work, but possibly. But it's good to know that... Okay, well, it's not good that somebody just left their child on somebody's doorstep. Like, I have a daughter. I couldn't imagine ever doing that. Like, I definitely have times where she frustrates me to no end. But I wouldn't give up on her like that, you know?
But how wonderfully, impossibly lucky I was. Because she didn't cry, I thought she might be mute. But that wasn't the case. She had a great deal to say. And as she got older, she would talk and talk. Every word was like music, a melody to my ears only. I felt so fortunate, and so unprepared. I suddenly had the life and well-being of another in my own hands. Her future, her everything.
Yeah, it's kind of an enormous responsibility to just have sprung on you. I mean, fortunately, yeah, or I was about to say Aspen. Juliet is a very dependable person. Like, I could think of very few people that would probably be more qualified than her to, like, take care of another human being, right?
It was a responsibility I had never asked for, and likely would have never asked for if my life hadn't changed that day.
Yeah, I mean, that's not an easy thing to just spring on someone. Usually, like, when my wife and I were, you know, preparing for our daughter, you know, you have 9 months to really kind of let it sink in and get things ready. And this was just something that was just kind of thrown on her, you know. With the baby having been around like 1 year old, there would be some things you wouldn't need, I guess. You could definitely start feeding them like actual food by that point. But yeah, I think at 1 year old, yeah, you just pretty much need regular milk at that point. You don't even need any kind of like breast milk or formula. So
She grew and grew, from a curious baby to precocious child, then to a confident young lady, and finally to a lovely woman.
So I'm curious, did she end up telling the child, like, what she was? Because clearly she doesn't age. I mean, I would imagine this is how she's looked since the baby's known her. I'm curious if we're gonna end up meeting, what was her name? Is it Cosette? Is that what it was? Cosette?
Well, her name, my daughter's name, is Cosette.
Cosette, okay. Just want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right. Oh, sorry, I was trying to get rid of this.
I couldn't have been more proud as a mother. Every graduation, every breakup, every smile and tear changed my life.
Wow, I mean, I can't say this was something I saw coming. I think this is a very interesting plot twist for her character. I wouldn't have imagined that she was a mother, you know? Certainly the circumstances were unique. Having a baby dropped on your doorstep, that's like some Harry Potter type stuff, but wow, okay, that's the side of Julia I have never seen. But I want to know, okay, why is she sad about it? It seemed like she was kind of hesitant to tell the story. I mean, yeah, it's kind of sad that someone would just leave their child with somebody else like that. But I don't know, she seems happy while she's talking about her. So I'm wondering, did something happen to her? Like, what's the hesitation for?
As my daughter, of course it would be true to say that I raised her, but it was mutual. She also made me into the person I am today.
I mean, it's possible she had her a long time ago, so maybe she's passed away since then, or I don't know, has moved away, and maybe she's sad about that because she hasn't seen her in a while. Okay, well, I'll just keep listening, see if I can get some answers. I just have a lot of questions, you know? Once Juliet finishes speaking, I let out a breath I don't remember holding. Just as when she first started speaking, her gaze is still fixed on the empty wall somewhere above my head. Just like when Aspen gets sucked into one of her books, I can tell that Juliet's mind is somewhere else entirely. Possible she's reminiscing about all the time she had with raising her.
The moment that I resolved to raise her, I made a promise to myself and to her. A promise that I would do all in my power to make the world Cosette lived in, grew up in, a better one that I had experienced. That I would show her how to find the beauty and the joy in all things dark and terrible. In a sense, I ceased to exist as a single person. My life was no longer my own. It was tied, forever and always, to another.
I have a feeling this is something that Miho is going to get to experience, not necessarily in the sense of a child, right? Creating a bond with a child, but I feel like, you know, either Juliet or Aspen, whoever she ends up with, I think is really what's going to happen for her. She hasn't really, I guess, relied on another person besides, Jong-in? Trying to remember the name. It's Korean, so it's a little hard for me to remember, unfortunately. I'm terrible with English names, so throw in a Korean name and it's even harder. that's probably the closest person she's ever been to, and I feel like even then the relationship is like, I wouldn't say it's incredibly strong. I don't feel like she really knew them personally, right? So I have a feeling when she gets to know Juliet or Aspen, I feel like she's gonna get really attached, and she's gonna feel this way. It was tied forever and always to another. She's gonna feel that way.
So, all those toys and things.
Yes, the treasures and mementos of another life. Of happy days filled with laughter. Of scraped knees and tummy aches. Of heartbreak and homecomings.
Love the way she talks about it.
I keep them there as not simply a reminder, but a tribute to those times.
Because we have to think that Juliet, like I've said before, and she said herself, like she's hundreds of years old. So imagine like how many interesting and unique experiences you'd have over hundreds of years, and I feel like this is something that she remembers the most. Like it's something that she keeps close to her in her house. Maybe she doesn't see it every day. I feel like she kind of hides it in some of the rooms, but she always keeps it there. I think it made such an impression and changed her life so much that she wants to always have a reminder and a tribute to those times, as she says right here.
Wow. I would have never guessed any of that. I never knew you were a mom.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known either. Makes me wonder, what do I not know about Aspen? What does Aspen have going on in her life? She did say she was going to tell us about it one day. Apparently she doesn't think of it as too interesting, but I have a feeling that there's probably more to her life than we actually know about. Her gaze returns to me, to the world that we're in now. She gives a little smile, but it looks fragile.
Well, I suppose it's not something I speak of very often.
Does she live here in Wellington? Could I meet her?
Oh no, I'm afraid to hear the answer to this. I feel like she's probably like gotten old and passed away. Juliet regards me with a strange look, similar to earlier with the elemental. It's not that she looks angry, it's just she's thinking about something very hard. I stare back, not sure what else to do or what I might have said wrong. Like always, her expression soon softens.
She is in Wellington, yes. A bit of a walk, but not too far. You can go in the morning if you'd like. It's been a little while since I have.
Oh no. No. I have a feeling what they're gonna do is we're gonna go on a walk and we're gonna go to a gravesite. I have a feeling that's what's gonna happen. I really hope that's not what's gonna happen, but just the vibe, how she kind of has like this hesitation to talk about her, and she has all these fond memories, and you can tell like there's a lot of good there, but then there's like this sting, you know? There's something more to this. Okay. I'm just worried. It's gonna be a sad thing.
Sure, fine by me. I guess it is getting kind of late for a visit, huh?
It is indeed. Speaking of which, I actually have some business I must tend to myself. Will you be alright on your own, Miho?
Yeah, we can manage.
Oh, yeah, of course. Don't worry about me.
Have a good night then. See you in the morning.
See you. I'll be ready to go first thing.
As Juliet leaves, I watch her go. It must just be me, but it seemed like she left in a hurry after saying that. Oh no, I can just feel it. I know it's not gonna be something like super happy, you know? It's gonna be like, don't like it. Maybe she and Cosette had an argument about something, or maybe she didn't just want to meet other people in her life. Other people in her life. I mean, I would hope that's what it is. Like, there's just something happened, you know, and maybe she just isn't as close to her anymore as she'd like to be. But I don't know. I get this feeling it's just because of her age. I feel like that it's possible this was a long time ago. The way she talks about Cosette is so different. The way I've heard Juliet talk about anything or anyone else, I can tell she cares a lot about her. That's the thing that hurts, is because I can tell how much she cares about her, and I'm like, oh. No, like there's no way she'd care about it that much and not be like a huge part of her life if she was still alive. So I'm just like, And she said it's a short walk away from here, like implying like it's not a short walk to see her. She would have said like, oh, we can go see her tomorrow. She said like wherever she is a short walk, implying like, oh, she's always in this one spot forever. All right. We just have to rip the band-aid, okay? We'll rip the band-aid. We'll go. Hopefully it'll make sense tomorrow after I get to meet her. When I finally decide to head up to my room, I take the wagon back first. As promised, I have to pick it up and carry it to get up the stairs, but fortunately it's not that heavy, even with my blanket bunched up inside. Once I get to the second floor, I put it down and drag the rest of the way to the storage room. After pushing the wagon into its empty spot, I take a proper look around now that I know what this room actually contains. More than just toys, I also spot racks of clothes and stacks of books and all kinds of other belongings. The whole room is pretty packed. Slowly making my way back to the door, I carefully maneuver between a rocking horse and a dollhouse, taking care not to step on anything or knock it over. Taking one last peek around before I head to my room, I get the feeling that there's nothing missing from Consette's childhood in here. I can't say for sure, but it certainly seems like Juliet hasn't let anything go. Okay, moment of truth. Let's find out. Morning air is fresh and crisp. The plants around us looking healthier for the drink last night. That's an interesting sentence. A handful of small puddles here and there are all that remains of yesterday's rain, likely to be completely dried up in a few hours. As I stand at the front of the door of the library, Juliet walks up beside me and unfolds her parasol, bringing it over her head.
Shall we depart? It's about a 30-minute walk from here, so perhaps we'll take a ride back once we're done.
Yep. Will you be okay in the sun with that?
Yes. It's still early enough that I don't need to worry too much.
I wonder, can she, stay in the sun for a while? Is it just her, or will it literally, kill her?
Lead on, then.
Stepping out into the brilliant morning, I stretch and roll my shoulders. It's a nice day, too. Not too cold, not too hot. As always, Juliet's steps are measured even as she walks. Her parasol bobs with each step, making it look like she's wearing a big hat from this angle. It's a silly thought. I smile to myself at the image as I skip along beside her. Even with protection from the sun, it's rare to see Juliet out in the daytime.
So, I was wondering something. If your daughter lives so close, then why doesn't she come to visit more often? I've been here for a couple months now.
Oh no, she's asking the questions. Although she clearly heard me, Juliet doesn't answer. Maybe it's too personal a question because things are tense between them. I've never seen Juliet not answer one of my questions before, so don't push it. No, this is just reconfirming what I already thought. Okay, we're going to this park. Juliet remains quiet as we keep walking. This is unusual for her, but I still feel a little awkward.
Sorry if I shouldn't have asked that.
No, it's all right. You'll see when we get there, though.
I knew if she said that answer, I would knew my suspicions are confirmed.
Okay.
We head in a direction I haven't explored before. We're in the same area as the gardens, but not quite the same spot. A massive green hill watches over us from one side, while trees blanket the other. After crossing a small bridge that runs over the highway, we reach another beautiful area. The concrete path we walk along is lined with bushes and flowers and the occasional decorative lamps. There are a few houses peeking through the trees which ring the area, but most of the field is covered in nature.
Whoa. Are we getting close?
Yes, we're very nearly there. This is Bolton Street Park.
She doesn't sound happy. She sounds really, sad.
She's pretty lucky to live in a place like this, huh?
No, Miho, don't say that.
Even as a child, Cosette had an affinity for the woods and trees.
I get that. I'll bet she would love to be able to turn into a badder fox.
I'm taken off guard by Juliet letting out a great laugh. I don't think I've seen her like this. A little giggle or barely a chuckle from time to time. Never anything so relaxed and sincere. A grin spreads on my face from just watching her.
Yes, I think you're right about that.
Okay, we saved the day. Juliet got a laugh. We made her laugh. I feel much better now. There are only a handful of houses around the park, so I wonder which one is Cosette's. Time and time again, we walk on past the turn which lead to any of them. So just as I start to wonder where it is we're going, Juliet slowly comes to a stop. The main path forks into two here. The one to our left, a well-trodden dirt path. There's a sign, but I can't read the writing well.
Everything okay? We're not lost, are we?
Heavens, no.
A number of tall trees shade the path that we're on, giving enough protection for Juliet to slide her parasol shut. She takes a deep, silent breath, then smiles and gestures down the offshoot before us.
It's right this way. Just a little further.
Nodding, I follow again as she leads us onwards. Right away, I notice that something's a little bit off. Juliet's steps are slower and a bit more uneven, like she doesn't want to get to wherever we're going. After a few minutes of walking in silence, she takes one last turn off in the path we're on, leading me up to a small hill dotted with trees. Once we reach the crest, Juliet comes to a stop. So confused, I step up beside her.
Here we are.
Huh? I don't see... Oh.
In the shade of one of the trees is a gray stone monument. Its edges are worn, rough and worn from time, but it's spotlessly clean. Yeah, I saw this one coming from a mile away, because I just got these vibes. And it's right there. You can actually, like, make out some of the letters. Oh, no. I got such a vibe. I hate that I'm right. Like, it was kind of obvious to me. I'm like, oh, the way she's talking about her, it's very, very past tense. Like, oh, all these events have already happened. You know, there's not going to be new events. There are others like it nearby. Practically identical. Words are carved into the stone. Too small for me to read easily. I never visited before, but I realized what this place is. I silently mouth the letters of the words at the top, even though I'm pretty sure I know what it's going to say. There's a C, then an O, then an S. Cosette's grave is preserved perfectly. I'm sure Juliet wouldn't stand for anything else.
I'm... sorry. I didn't...
It's okay, Miho. I'm aware you didn't know. But... I wanted you to.
Dang, I know I've been asking for some more time with Julia. I really felt like we needed to have like a stronger connection, but this is like a very unexpected way of getting that. This isn't us going out on a date or just spending time together. This is kind of sad, to say the least. Turns back to the grave, gently running a hand over the curved stone.
My beautiful, precious daughter passed away years ago. Almost 2 decades by now.
Okay, so about 20 years.
She lived a long, full life and spent her final moments with those she loved. The last words she told me, the last words she ever said to me.
Julia's shoulders shake without a sound as I stand there helplessly. She shudders as she takes a deep breath.
Or that she couldn't have been happier.
Gosh, I feel like that would be hard to hear, because it's like, I don't know, when you're losing a loved one, I feel like all you want is for them to be happy. And then they say something like that, and you're like, well, are you sure? Did I do enough, you know, for you? Could I have done more? I feel like even though you hear this, and that's like everything you'd want, right? You'd want your child or your loved one to say, like, I was as happy as I could have been. I don't know. It's just hard. You would always... I feel like for me, I would always have some kind of regret. I would always be like, well, I don't know. You say you're happy, but are you really happy? Are you just saying that to comfort me? Did I really do a good enough job, you know?
What was she like?
She was so many things that it's almost impossible to answer. I think you would have liked her. I'm sure she would have loved you. She was adventurous and free, sometimes stubborn to a fault. Once her heart was set on something, there was no stopping her. Everything she did vividly, to the fullest. Even if the very laws of existence told her something was impossible, she would try anyway. She was endlessly kind, with compassion for every living thing, from the smallest insect to the largest, most ferocious beast. She saw the value in all of them.
Wow, I didn't think we'd get to see Juliet so emotional. I mean, she always seems like such a stern, elegant, well put together person, you know? It's different seeing someone that composed just kind of break down and be vulnerable, right? She gives a small smile as she looks at me. Even as tears well in her eyes, I gulp to try and force down my emotions.
You should have seen her as a child. She would talk your ear off. Both of them, if you'd let her. There wasn't a single person near us who didn't know who she was. So, open and free, was she? That warmth and care. It was the core of her life. If she saw someone in need, she would rush to their aid. It just naturally came to her. If you or I see someone hurting, we may choose to help. For Cosette, it wasn't a choice. It was simply who she was. To know her was to adore her. Every day that went by, I was more and more proud of her. Those virtues never faded a bit, even on her last day. She was worried for me more than anything. I promised her that I would...
Juliet sobs, dragging her hand across her face. All I can do is watch. My own emotions a storm that tosses me in all different directions. The pain in Juliet's shaky voice is enough to make my own breath tremble. But beyond that, there's something else. Something eating at me that I don't want to acknowledge. Juliet turns back towards the grave, taking a couple steps closer, unfurling her parasol. She holds it over her shoulder like a shield, guarding herself against the sunlight. She's also able to stand a little straighter.
I promised her that I would live as she did, to honor her memory with kindness and with virtue and with compassion and patience for all. That I would ensure her legacy lived on in the many lives she had touched.
Makes me wonder if that's why Juliet's the kind of person that she is. Why she was like so receptive and kind towards Miho when Miho was clearly like just trying to use her and leave, right?
It was only in the days that followed her passing, as I wandered lost and alone, that I truly began to understand how much she had saved my own life. The gift she gave me was something I'd never had before. How very silly and irrelevant things such as wealth and prestige began to seem after that. Those were fleeting concepts, born of some misplaced need or desire. There was something that could be much greater. Something well beyond money and power. Love. As a word, it's difficult to understand. To hear the poets speak of it, there's nothing mightier and nothing softer. Love was either everything or it was nothing.
Wow, that's a beautiful way to put that. I feel like love is very much a hot or cold thing for most people, right? I feel like it's either you're in love or you're not. You know, love is such a strong emotion. It's very easy to tell when it's really there, right? I think some people are hesitant to know if they like somebody or not. But I feel like when you really love someone, like whether you actively are aware of it, your actions will show it. Like you will know if you're in love with someone because of the amount of time you're willing to put into them. If they're the first person you think of when something's going wrong, or if they're having a bad day, you rush to their side to help them, right? Like there's certain actions that people do when they're in love. And I'm not just talking about a romantic sense, but I'm talking about just when you truly like deeply care about somebody, like you love them like they're your own, right? Or for some people that aren't in love, they don't really see what other people see. Like if you don't really have someone in your life that you truly love and care about, then you won't really understand love. So for most people, it's either everything or it's nothing, right? It's something you either feel very strongly or you don't feel much of it at all.
It always seemed so trite, so immature. An attempt to create meaning where there is none. And yet, I've found that the poets were right. They were so right.
I think there's a big reason that like when you play a lot of visual novels, there's always some kind of love element to it, right? And especially in a story like this. Like, we know going into this is a Yuri story, right? It's just the girl loves girl story. I think the reason why you see so much stories focused on love is because it is truly one of the most powerful things out there. It's stronger than a sword or whatever you want to compare it to, right? It's just something that's so motivating and moving for people that makes you willing to do things that you probably would never do without that emotion. If you aren't in love, you're not gonna go out and do a bunch of stuff for people. You have to have love in that. There has to be some kind of connection, some desire to really connect with somebody on that level. And it's like, if you don't have love, it's like you can go out and do something right for somebody else, but there's not love behind it. It's like, okay, whatever, right? I mean, I can go pay someone to do something for me. That doesn't mean they're doing it out of love. They're doing it because I paid them. But, you know, when I go out and do just something, like if I play with my daughter, let's just use that as an example. If I'm out there playing with her, I'm doing that because I love her. It's not necessarily something I would want to be doing all the time, right? I do it because I love her. I want to make her happy, and I enjoy when she's happy, and that makes me happy, right? That's just an example, I think, of love in my life. And I do things for my wife, of course, too, all the time. But it's interesting when you have a kid. I feel like you start... I wouldn't say I focus less on the other people I love in my life, but she tends to be my focus. You know, she's young, she's impressionable. She needs my love the most. She needs that active, those active actions that I do that show love. Because it's one thing to feel love, right? Like, my wife knows that I love her. I don't need to tell her, I don't need to show her all the time for her to know that, at least I hope not. But I still try to do those things anyways. I mean, it's important to, right? Human beings need reassurance, is what I'll say. But for my daughter, it's like, she doesn't... If I don't do those things, I don't know if she will know that I love her. She's young, she doesn't really have that unbreakable trust with me yet. And I don't know, you could even argue that even adults need that too. Like, they need constant reassurance. You know, as adults, we should know better that someone loves us, right? But I don't know. I think you could apply the same things you do to kids to adults too. Like, we all need love. That's the point I'm trying to make. I'll just leave it at that.
You and I, Miho. To be able to live on, unaffected by time's curse, must surely seem a blessing to some.
Yeah, I think to some others, though, I don't want to diminish life, but, like, I feel like sometimes when people die, we appreciate them more. I think you hear about that a lot, even in, like, songs and just in general life lessons. Like, you truly appreciate someone that you cared about after they die, because you're like, wow, I had all this time with them, and I wish I could have had more, right? You really value it more than I think you ever could when someone's alive. I think you can definitely value someone's time when they're alive, and you should, right? If they really mean something to you. But I think once they're gone, that's when you truly learn, like, oh, like, I really, really enjoyed having this person around. I really needed them to help comfort me, and now I feel like maybe I don't know who can comfort me, right? I mean, I say this from someone who lost someone really important to me when I was younger. It was my grandma, and I don't know, it was hard. I'll leave it at that. I don't know. It's not that I'm uncomfortable about talking about it. I just don't want to spend too much time on it, you know? This isn't my moment, okay?
But that time is meaningless without something to fill it. To those of us who walk alongside Father Time, rather than fleeing him, it's awfully lonely.
I don't know who voiced Juliet in this, but she does, like, I can feel when she says that, like, she's hurting.
When I first became a vampire, I told myself that I had no more need for humans, that I was beyond them. Now, I realize I was afraid. There's a simple contentment and joy that can only be found in experience and age, I've learned. Wisdom does not exclude humans, but to look on as once vibrant hair fades to grey, and as once strong hands soften their grips, as once treasured memories become distant.
I would almost say the fact that you do know that your life is limited, that we as humans know we don't have an infinite amount of time. We know that, hey, I'm probably only gonna live maybe 100 years, if that, right? Because there's accidents, illness, there's always things that come up, and for some people it's just old age, right? You just die because your body gets run down and you eventually pass away. I feel like that motivates us to really value what we have more, and I think that's kind of what Juliet's kind of looking back on, like, hey, I'm immortal, and for a long time I didn't really put value into life as much because I knew I didn't have a timer. Like she says, I'm walking alongside Father Time, not running away from it. I'm not trying to make the most of my life, and because I know it's Father Time's gonna eventually catch up with me. Like she's realizing, like, I didn't value that maybe for a long time, and she's realizing, like, oh, seeing someone I care about who did have to worry about that and then them passing away hurts to lose a loved one, and knowing that you're immortal, you're not gonna be reunited with them, maybe ever, or at least for a long time.
There is pain. To watch someone you love grow up is beautiful. To watch them grow old is to suffer. Cosette lived into her 80s. A good, long life for a human. Even as her flesh started to fail her, her mind never did. She was sharp as a sword and quick as a fox. For a human, there is no kinder, gentler end than that of old age. And every day, I'm thankful that Cosette was one of those lucky ones. To slip away peacefully and painlessly.
Gosh, I thought about that recently, like how there's some people that die like incredibly gruesome deaths. I know we watch I know, like, we as a society just watch a lot of shows where people just die absolutely brutally. Like, can you imagine? Like for a lot of people, that's reality, and that still happens today. I mean, I feel like most people, and especially if you're probably watching this video, you probably live in a place that's relatively safe, I would imagine, or I'd hope so for you. But there's a lot of people who don't, even to this day, and especially in the past. I mean, there's people who died to disease and into war and in just absolutely horrible ways. It's like, we're really lucky that a lot of people nowadays just generally pass away from old age. They just slip away peacefully and painlessly, as she said. And it's a blessing, truly.
As I held that soft, shaky hand for the last time, I wished desperately that I could trade places with her. I would have done anything to give her just one more day.
Now see, it hurts when people say stuff like this. I really feel like this is putting the burden of someone dying on you, is putting the blame. And I feel like it's a very negative thing to do to yourself, because it's not your fault. At least in most circumstances, it's probably not your fault. I feel like people that like have someone close to them always wish like I could trade places with them, or I wish I could take their pain away from them, but I don't know. I feel like that's just, it's not a positive thing to do to yourself. You're putting all this pressure on you that you don't have to. Especially because she already said that she couldn't have been happier. She was already happy. Don't let yourself not be happy, okay? Don't take this person's death, who already said that they were happy, and make yourself unhappy over it, right? Cherish what you had, and then, hopefully you can make new memories that are happy as well, and still have those old ones that are happy. I feel like if you start taking on this burden for yourself, you're just gonna always live the rest of your life not being happy, and that's not what they would want for you, right?
But there was nothing to be done. Cosette passed on with no regrets, and a smile on her face. She lived as full a life as any human could live.
Yeah, so I wouldn't regret that. I wouldn't look back on that as, and I would do whatever you can to not look back on that and feel pain. Like, there's nothing to feel pain about that. It's sad that you don't get to spend more time with them, but, you know, be glad that they had a smile on their face when they died and they lived as full of a life as they could. Like, if you know that, try to find some comfort in that. I know that's easier said than done. That's how I feel about it.
And when she was gone, I was still there. My flesh not a day older than when I met her. It was then that I realized what a cruel gift immortality could be. What a slow, repetitive torture if I chose to let it. So for the sake of Cosette's memory, and of the promise I made, I swore that I would continue to live as I had not lived before. For virtue, for friendship, for others, for tomorrow. To die is human. To live is a privilege.
Wow, that was such a great moment. Like, I know that's really hard. It's really hard to hear all that. But there was just, like, so much, like... There's so much emotion in that. Like, it was just really nice to hear. It really made me, like, think about a lot of stuff. That's why I talk so much. Because I was just, like... So much thoughts going through my mind, right? It was really nice to, like, see such a vulnerable moment from Juliet. I don't feel like we've really ever seen that so far. I wish it was under better circumstances. But I really enjoyed... like hearing her story and like how much that changed her, right? How much value she got out of her daughter's life, and how she's, instead of like sulking about it, like I was worried from some of the wording she was using, she really used it to better herself and to live a life that she can be proud of, and hopefully her daughter, right? Absolute clarity, the storm inside me calms as I pass through its eye. There's a sense of finality in Juliet's words, which leave them ringing in my ears as I stumble backwards without thinking about it. To die is human. All humans, Cosette, someday Aspen, but also, even mine, my person. Oh boy. I think this is gonna hit Miho pretty hard, that her person's probably passed on. They were probably human, and this was hundreds of years ago, that they're probably not around anymore. I feel like this is a big reality check for her, and reading what I am reading right here, it doesn't sound like she's taking it too well. My person, the one I searched for my entire life, is dead too, long dead. No matter what happened after they left the forest, the nature of their human lifespan means that they lived lifetimes ago, generations ago. As they run farther and farther away, one thought echoes above the others. All this time, all those years, all those decades, they've been for nothing. I dig my claws into the earth with every step, tearing at the roots and leaves. I do know the name for the feeling pulling and tugging at me, the one that had taken over Juliet as we stood there, one I've heard of but never felt until now. Grief. Every lie, every theft, every struggle and hardship, everything for nothing. That words swirls in my head, a dying leaf drifting towards the ground, falling and powerless to stop itself. Finally I come to a stop, not even knowing where I am, or for how long I ran. I just stop when I lose the will to run anymore, transforming onto my knees. Every decision I made, every place I've gone, had all been in the service of one dream. Over time, I grew to rely on it. I didn't have to think or make a difficult decision for myself. Instead, it was like I had a path to follow, however long. The path wasn't actually leading anywhere. All it did was take me far away and leave me on my own. I feel like what Miho's gonna have to do, and what she's realizing is at some point you kind of, and I know this kind of goes against what we were just talking about, but you kind of have to learn to live for yourself. I feel like you can love somebody and put so much value into them. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to choose to live for yourself as well. Like there has to be, if you truly love this person, then allow that to help you become a better person and to show love as Juliet's been doing to other people, right? She's trying to make friendships and meet new people and trying to replicate the person that she loved, which was her daughter. I feel like you kind of have to do that too, regardless of whether the person you really love the most is around at all either. Because they want you to be happy. If they love you, they want you to be happy, I would hope. So whether they're there or not, I think they would want you to make the most of your life. And now Miho's realizing the person that I lived my entire life for isn't around. And she's going to have to figure it out. She's going to have to see if she can move on and find happiness in other ways. That's not to diminish what she had, the love she had for her person. That's not to diminish anything that happened between them. But you can still make new happy experiences, right? I think that's what I'm trying to say. Rising to my feet, I look around the area. Although the trees and slopes remind me of Mount Victoria, I don't recognize it at all. Juliet's nowhere to be seen. The sprawling sunlight means she couldn't join me here even if she wanted to. Even if she found me, I wonder if she's looking. Juliet, who always seemed so calm and put together, behind that mask she was hiding all these feelings. I don't know, I feel like Miho's spiraling right now into a bad mindset. Because Juliet was still happy. Juliet still found happiness, and she is saying that even though she lost her loved one, she still was finding happiness. She was still taking that loss and turning it into something that can help inspire and bring love to other people's lives. I feel like that's the kind of the lesson that I've been talking about and that Miho's missing right now. She thinks that Juliet's just been pretending to be happy, when I think, no, she's genuinely been happy. She's had moments that she feels are worthwhile and is finding meaning in a life that she didn't find much before she met Cosette and raised her. So I want to see if Miho is going to be able to like come out of this and realize some of those things, and realizing that she, even if her person has passed away, that she can still find happiness and she can still bring happiness to other people, which is very important as well. What else do I know about her? What else has she been keeping to herself? Is it just more pain? A nice cold chill runs down my spine, making me shudder as I realize something else. She must have known, too, that my person was dead. She must have figured it out right away, yet she never told me. Okay, I'll read this real quick, but I'm sorry. I was just kind of reading in my head, and I'm like, lots of thoughts. Aspen too, suddenly every pain, look, or topic changed whenever I brought up Jong-in. Makes sense. They both knew and were hiding it from me all along this whole time, letting me go on and get my hopes up without ever stopping me or telling the truth. Oh boy. She's really spiraling right now. She's really just thinking the whole world's against her at this moment, and it's a very dangerous way to think. It'll make you very lonely very quick. It was so simple too, so obvious. If I had just thought about it for a bit myself, I'd realize that humans live and die much faster than my kind do. Sighing, I sit down in the grass, wrapping my arms around my knees, mash one palm into my eyes to wipe away the tears that are there.
Stop crying, Miho.
Sorry, so much thoughts. I really apologize. I'm talking so much this video, but there's so much to talk about, so I hope you guys don't mind. I don't know, Miho, it's okay to cry. Like, you're not a weak person for crying. I have a very hard time crying. I feel like I kind of suppressed it as a child. Like, I just thought I would be tougher and stronger if I didn't cry, right? So I like those moments when I do truly cry. They're very rare. I tear a lot, like, I'll have tears or get watery eyes, but like truly crying is something I don't do too often. I don't think it's a sign of weakness. I think it's a sign of showing and expressing your emotions, which is a very healthy thing to do. Sometimes you need that. I mean, I definitely think you could do it too much. I think doing it too much can just not help, but it's okay to break down and cry every so often. I just worried Miho's gonna really put herself in a corner here. She's gonna think everyone was against her and they were, trying to hide it from her, and I really think they just wanted her to come to the conclusion herself. I think they know Miho is pretty innocent and that she needs to kind of learn these lessons. It's hard, and it does come off as they don't care, but I do think it's the opposite. I think they actually cared so much that they didn't want to be the ones to tell her. I think they knew it was going to hurt her and that she was going to learn eventually. Sorry, I might not read all of this. I've just been talking so much, I'm like running out of breath. Now that the initial shock has worn off, the pain in my heart has gone from a sharp stab to a dull throb. Aside from my pure survival instinct, death has always been distant and faceless to me, but now I have to look it in the eye. My time with Jong-in was short, thousands of times shorter than the time I've spent looking for them since then. Still, it was all I had. Where do I even go from here? The sun is getting higher, so Juliet must have made her way home by now. Should I even be waiting for me to come back? We both know I have to at some point. It's getting harder for me too. Shakily I rise to my feet and look around again, actually trying to get my bearings. If I have to, I can just go back in the direction I came from until I find somewhere similar. I start walking back towards the library since it's the only place I have to go. I may think of it as a home for now, but I can't help but picture Juliet's sobbing face. Immortal or not, there has to come a time someday where we don't see each other, and that will be the end of our memories together, or at least her memories of me. Same goes for Aspen, as mortal as Cosette. Aren't I just resigning myself to feeling this pain again someday, potentially even stronger? Maybe she was right, the other Gumiho. Maybe I don't belong anywhere. Oh no, don't let that silver fox get into your head. No good. No bueno. Don't let her do it to you. By the time I get back to the library, I'm exhausted from the walk in the sun. Miho's doing this thing where she's like, okay, I've had a hard event, you know, it's going to happen again. You start going down this path where you just kind of like... It's something I do quite often. I look ahead at events, that, especially ones that I'm nervous about or that bother me, and it builds up in my head, and it just becomes a mess. Like, don't do that. Don't constantly focus on the bad events or the things that worry you in your life, because it just builds up in you. It's like you can't do that. Take it a step at a time, and remember that there's tons of good events that will happen in between that too, right? Life isn't just the sad or the dark moments. Throw open the library door and go inside, walking past my empty seat at the front desk. Juliet's nowhere to be seen, only patrons. They've always managed just fine without me, though. Plodding up to my room, I grab my blanket from my bed and wrap it around myself before I lower myself to the floor. Then when the tears hit me again, and this time I can't hold them back. Slouching onto my side, I don't even try. There's no point. As expected, in less than a minute, there's a sound at my door. 3 knocks. Always 3.
Miho? Is that you? Are you alright?
I don't respond. I don't even know if I want to see Juliet right now. She's part of this too, after all. She pauses outside for a moment, then a few seconds later, Juliet opens the door anyways.
Miho.
The pity in her voice tells me everything I need to know. I can only imagine what I must look like, covered in blankets and lying on the floor. Must look pathetic, childish. Must be how I always look to her.
Miho. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Juliet trails off, still just inside the door. I can see her legs in pain, but not her face. I can picture the concern on it, though.
Didn't mean to what?
Words came out as a growl, surprising even myself, but I can't pretend, not now. She let herself in here, she can deal with it. This hurts to watch, because I've seen this in other people, and I've maybe seen this in myself, too. Where you just kind of have this realization that maybe life wasn't as cheerful and blossomy as you thought. And you get really sad, and it really, really hurts you deep inside. It's traumatizing to a degree. And other people try to comfort you, and you still don't know how to deal with it yourself, and you don't want to involve other people, and you just kind of like become really defensive and standoffish. You know, you lash out, you become mean, and it's like that's not what you want. That's not what you want to do, but that's just your natural reaction to it for some people. Pain sways side to side as she wrings her hands, almost knocking against the wall more than once.
For you to put things together this way, such a painful way. I wanted to...
So you did know.
Cut her off without thinking as she confirms my suspicions. With one arm, I push myself up, letting the blanket fall away from my face as I glare daggers at Juliet.
Pardon?
She probably didn't realize.
You knew.
Well, I rise to my feet. My head is pounding. I can hear my blood pumping as anger rises through me, bubbling out like liquid magma. Miho, don't do this. Don't do this. This is not gonna help you. This is not gonna make you feel better doing this.
All this time they've been dead, and you knew, didn't you? You probably knew from the first time I told you about them, right?
She stiffens and then Juliet sighs deeply. It's all anyone ever seems to do around here.
I did. Yes.
Why? Why didn't you tell me?
That's not something anybody wants to tell you. Like, oh yeah, this person you've been looking for hundreds of years and that you like talk about so fondly, yeah, they're probably long dead. Like, nobody wants to go out straight and tell you that, okay? Although tears are beginning to choke my voice here, I managed to shout out my question, my accusation.
I've been looking like such an idiot. I'm already an idiot compared to you and to Aspen. Every day I'm reminded of that.
Gosh, dang. Miho, nobody would be putting this much effort into you if they didn't care about you, if they didn't love you, to a degree.
But this really takes the cake, doesn't it? I've been wasting my whole entire life over something everyone else can figure out right away.
Miho, it isn't like that.
Yeah, that was nobody's intention.
Then why? Tell me why you didn't tell me sooner. Or Aspen. She knows too, right?
My eyes burn and my nose is running. My face hurts in every way possible.
We didn't know how.
Know how? What do you mean, know how?
I can't keep myself from shouting. I feel so stupid, so angry, and so sad.
Please, Miho, try to understand. We were still just getting to know you. You barely trusted Aspen or me. If we just told you that the person you were looking for was deceased, we didn't know how you'd take it. You might not even believe us, for one thing. Or perhaps it would give you cause to run away again. As the weeks went on, we wanted to, but it never seemed to be the right time.
Yeah, it's difficult because I understand the frustration on both ends. Miho absolutely deserved to know that truth, I think, but at the same time, I totally agree with Juliet and Aspen. That's not something you just casually bring up. It's very hard. I feel like that's something you just kind of had to have made time for, but at the same time, Juliet and Aspen are just kind of helping you out, and they're still trying to get to know you. Like, you're pretty new in their lives, so it's like, I sympathize with both ends. I really do.
Neither of us wanted to be the one to, out of nowhere, bring your whole world crashing down.
Nobody wants to do it. Any good friend or anybody you love would not want to hurt you like that.
Not when you were trying so hard. You seemed so happy. It felt more cruel to ruin that in a way. I'm sorry, Miho. I truly am. It was wrong of me to let it go this long without saying anything, but believe me, I only hesitated out of love. Aspen and I both. We simply couldn't bring ourselves to break your heart that way.
I have to remember Miho's hurting right now. She's gonna say a lot of things that she really doesn't mean. She's trying to get through this, this realization. And it's easier to lash out and blame other people than to really look deep inside yourself and realize that nobody wanted this for you. There was no winning way to get through the situation. Even if they would have sat you down and did it all properly like that still would have hurt you. She might have had the exact same reaction, I don't know. It's a hard thing. You're just gonna have to get through that. It's just, it's not really Juliet or Aspen's responsibility. Like, you are pretty new to their lives. They've really been trying to help you. Like, they clearly didn't want you to hurt. Juliet sniffles and I have to look away. I don't want to see her cry again, not while I'm already like this. Slipping down to the floor, I pick my blanket back up and wrap it around myself again. Even as I do, I can't help but think about how it's not really my blanket, it's Juliet. She just lets me use it like everything else.
Go away.
Miho, don't. Don't be mean, okay? I really wish Miho would just say, hey, I need some time alone right now. Anybody, that's trying to comfort you in that situation will be like, oh, okay, I understand. You need some time alone. You need some time to cool off, think things through. That's what a lot of people in this situation need. Finally, she doesn't try to argue, doesn't even say anything else, just nods silently and leaves the room. The second the door shuts behind her, I collapse in my bed, put my pillow over my face, and succumb to my grief. My everything hurts when I wake up. Damp pillows still covering me. My face and head hurt from crying, and my body hurts from passing out in an uncomfortable position. I didn't even mean to fall asleep. I must have cried myself into it. The memories of yesterday didn't even give me a chance to wake up before they flooded my brain, pulling a groan out of me in response. I don't want to get up. I don't want to leave my bed. What's even the point? Still, I know I have to. I have to see Aspen for the next few hours and Juliet too. I don't even know what to say or what else I want to hear. As much as I'd like to avoid everything and everyone, the rational part of me knows that I can't. Instead, my magic bead forces me to conform like always, either get up or be forgotten. It's not really much of a choice. I sluggishly get dressed and wipe down my face, which is still red from crying, then I trot downstairs to where we would normally be having breakfast. Except it's later than usual. There's food on the table for me, but it's long since cold. And I can hear the sounds of conversation and movement that were meant the library is already open. Life goes on with or without me. I cram down a slice of cold toast and browning apple without really tasting them, just knowing that I need the nourishment. Then I wander up to the front desk of the library where Juliet is seated in my spot at the desk. When she notices me approaching, I can see her struggle to decide how to greet me, uncertainty plain in her eyes. I can't decide either, so I just settle for a stiff nod.
Hey.
Good morning, Miho.
Her voice is awkwardly stilted. It seems out of place for Juliet. I gesture at the stack of books next to her and half-filled checkout sheet.
You can go to bed. I can take over from here.
Juliet shakes her head, looking a little more confident in emotion.
No, it's all right. You're in no state to be working today. Let me handle it instead.
Really. It's fine.
The patron starts to approach the counter, a couple books in his hand. I start to reach for them, but Juliet stands up, blocking me off.
Good morning. All set to check out?
I let my hand fall to my side. The person checking out books looks a little confused, but settles on talking to Juliet instead of me. Fine then, if she wants to, she can do it. She has that same practiced tone of voice when it comes to helping a stranger that Aspen does. Aspen calls it her customer service voice. To me, it's all the same as how I'd sound when I'm trying to deceive someone or get something out of them. The only difference is I'm sure I could pull mine off now like she can. Then again, it seems like Juliet must have always been good at hiding her feelings. Wordlessly, I turn around and step out from behind the desk, passing by the guests on my way out the door. In the corner of my eyes, you can see that Juliet watching me as I go, even as she deftly handles the checkout. I really hope Miho can, work through this. Because it's for some people, I think working takes your mind off of it. I know that's what my mom did. So the night my grandma passed away, it was I think 1 in the morning or something like that. I wasn't there. That's one thing I do regret is that I wasn't there to see her pass away. My mom had me stay over at my aunt's house, and I didn't get to be there. So it was I don't know. I didn't really get to have that. Excuse me. I didn't really get to have that. What's the word I'm looking for? I guess the confirmation that she really died, it didn't really settle in for so long. I feel besides the point, my mom ended up going to work that night because it's you have so much on your mind, and it's sometimes you just need to do something to get yourself off of it. So it's maybe working would have helped, but at the same time, maybe she just needs to walk around today, not worry about working, not worrying about having to constantly take care of others' needs when you have so much you need to take care of yourself. Fresh air is an instant relief, and I gulp it as I stretch out my arms, just basking in the sun for a moment. I start walking to the Bell House because I need to see Asma before it gets too late. Fortunately, we had a late breakfast yesterday, so I have a little bit more leeway than usual. Do my best to keep my head empty on the way there, because if I let myself think, it'll turn out bad. So instead, I just focus on putting one foot in front of the other, and on paying the minimum amount of attention to my surroundings, just enough to get me there. Aspen herself is working the counter when I enter the cafe, and she waves eagerly when she sees me.
Oh, Miho! I was just thinking of taking my break early to come see you. Juliet said you were feeling a little under the weather this morning.
Make my way up to the register, staring blankly at the menu. I could actually read some of it if I tried, but I'm not.
I can see what she means. Are you all right?
Shrug.
Yeah, I'm fine. Let me get,
The names of the different drinks that I swirl around in my head, but somehow picking one feels like an impossible challenge. I wasn't actually planning to stay or get something to drink. I just started ordering out of habit.
Whatever you recommend.
Frowning, Aspen taps something on the machine. I reach for my wallet, but she waves a hand to stop
It's
me.
on me. Go sit down and I'll bring you something soon. Thanks.
Leaving after that, I trudge to a booth and sit down, resting my head on my arms, closing my eyes. I could have just come inside and left again as soon as Aspen saw me, but I know I wouldn't feel any better anywhere else I could choose to go. At least this way I get a free drink out of it. I don't open my eyes again until I hear the sound of Aspen getting a cup down in front of me before taking a seat herself.
Thanks. Again.
Sitting up, I have a taste of whatever it is Aspen brought me. It's scalding hot and bitter.
What's in this? Coffee. What else? Espresso? You look like you need it.
Yeah, little pick-me-up. Usually I take another sip, bracing myself against the heat this time.
One of your recipes? No, I don't know who invented it, but it's been my go-to for years when I need a pick-me-up. Don't you feel more awake now?
That's my wife's favorite. She loves espresso. I don't know. I tend to milk down whatever I have, so I'll usually just do like a brewed. I don't know. I like the like an Italian roast. Italian roast is good. What did I have today that was really good? I can't remember. I don't know. It was something. It was good. Just simple. I don't like too much of anything. I feel like if it's too strong of a coffee flavor, then it makes me gag. So the aftertaste lingers in my mouth if I drink some more, anyways. I don't know. I don't like it to be too sugary either. I literally just put milk in there with it and maybe a pump of something that my wife has because she has a lot of those syrupy pumps, but I don't like too much of that.
Unfortunately.
It's always good to have a little pick-me-up though when you're feeling tired or under the weather.
Then it's doing its job. You really do look a mess though. Were you crying?
As soon as Aspen takes a second look to my face, I can see her take on the same look of concern as Juliet. I raise my cup to my lips again just to hide myself.
Yeah?
There's an awful scraping sound as Aspen slides her chair a little closer to mine, taking one of my hands in hers. I pull away immediately.
Sorry, I should have asked first. What's wrong? Did I do something?
Her face starts to redden, and I already know what's coming next.
It's fine.
I don't know how to respond, so instead I opt for a question that's been lingering in my
Do you
mind.
know who Cosette is? Cosette? No, I don't believe I know the name. Is she a friend of yours?
Wow. Miho, I hope you feel a little bit appreciated. As we just learned, Juliet shared something very intimate and personal in her life that she has not even shared with Aspen. Aspen of all people, who seems to be like her closest friend.
No. Don't worry about it.
If Aspen doesn't know, I'm not going to be the one to tell her. So it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that Juliet never mentioned her before, even though the two of them are supposedly close friends. As for my human, though, may as well just get it out there. At least then we'll be on the same page.
I found out my person is dead.
Although I've been sitting with that thought for hours now, it's the first time I've said those words out loud. To my own surprise, they come out as steady as everything else. At least I don't feel like I'm gonna cry.
Oh.
Finally, I glance at Aspen herself. Just like Julia, I can see her eyes widen and mouth drop as she tries to think of something more to say. I don't know. Is it entirely possible that her person was a fabled? They might still be alive. I feel like it's a hard judgment. I don't feel like she really remembers that much about her person. So it's not like she would know about that. She seemed pretty naive, so.
And you knew, didn't you?
Her hand toys uselessly with an abandoned straw wrapper on the table.
I suspected as much, yes.
Yeah, I feel like it's a hard judgment to say that they are dead. I mean, we live in a world where there's fantasy creatures and things that live forever. I sigh, not surprised at all. I don't even have the energy to be that upset compared to when I was dealing with Juliet.
I'm sorry, It's okay. Juliet already said it. Well, I'm saying it too. I'm sorry. It seems you probably didn't find out in the best way. Not that there is a best way. That was why we were afraid to tell you. We didn't know how. Actually, I'm just going to stop talking. Really? It's fine.
Miho, excuse my language, but Miho is so bullshitting right now. She is just so pissed and being so petty about it, blaming Aspen and Juliet, who clearly cared about her so much that they didn't know how to bring that up to her. That's not something easy. You don't want to just tell somebody that's so happy and so excited to learn about their person and feel like they're making progress. You know, they just went to the museum and they found out something about them. Nobody's gonna tell you, like, oh yeah, they're dead, by the way. Like, if they were human, they're clearly, like, that was hundreds of years ago. They don't live that long. It's like, really, who's gonna tell you that, Miho? Who wants to tell you that? Maybe after a while, you know, that once they get even closer, you know, you've only been, what has it been, a month? Like, you've only known Aspen and Juliet for a month? They're all flatly before she can start over-apologizing. Being apologized to makes me uncomfortable, like an itch I can scratch. Putting my chin in my hands, I look out the window to the sunny day outside. It's as nice as it ever is here.
I just wish you would have told me.
This went from being really sad to, like, really frustrating because I'm like, Miho, stop lashing out at people. Just say, hey, I'm having a hard time with this. I understand that you would have wanted to tell me, but, you know, I wish I would have knew sooner. You know, I know you didn't mean to hurt me by withholding it, but it does. Like just say it that way. Say it in a positively affirming way that doesn't just put all the blame on somebody else. Because it's like, it's not, I don't think it's their responsibility. I don't think it's their fault. What I'm trying to say.
If it makes you feel any better, we were going to soon. We'd already decided, but not on how. I assume Juliet told you. More or less, yeah. She said something that made me figure it out. I see.
Both of them just accepted my being upset so easily. Neither of them tried to argue or anything, or just apologize. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I'm sure if Aspen's words make me feel better or not. Because they're not going to be mad at you. They know you're mad at them. They're not going to be mad at you, though, because they sympathize with you. They care about you. But there's just no easy way to say this. There's just none. Also, I have to ask what I'm getting out of doing this to myself and to her and to Juliet. Sitting here silently stewing on my emotions. What felt like burning rage last night now feels less explosive. Yes, this is good. This is good. Okay. I do wish they'd been more honest with me, but they were both just trying to be nice. It's not like I haven't done things that not like I haven't done the things they were afraid of before, like run away. When that's the case, is it really okay to be upset with them? Sorting through complicated emotions is difficult. I like when things are straightforward. I know how to be sad or mad or something else. Right now, seeing how sad it's also made Juliet now Aspen doesn't make me feel better either. But, you know, this is a lesson for her, too. Like, she's never been able to do this with somebody. She's never learned these things growing up, because she's never really, like, cared about anybody else besides her person, of course. But she didn't really know her person, I guess, in that sense. She was a fox. Nothing else, I should at least tell them how I feel, or try to. Closing my eyes for a beat, I make my first real decision since leaving for Cassette's grave with Juliet yesterday.
Are you busy tonight? I want to talk with you and Juliet. Together.
Yes, Miho, this is great. This is so good. She startles at the sound of my voice. I guess she didn't expect me to say anything else.
I'll be there. Just tell me when.
Perfect. This is so good. Okay. Yes, Miho. You want to talk about it. You want to get through this. You're working on it. Hopefully you don't go there and just tell them off, because that's not going to help. It sounded like from her conversation, though, like she's really trying to work this through.
I don't know yet. I have to ask Juliet, but I'll have her let you know. Okay, that works for me.
Perfect. I stand up slowly and Aspen does the same. I can tell from the way she's still fidgety and nervous, though, that something's bothering her. With a tiny pop as she snaps the paper straw wrapper in half.
Can you tell me one thing, though? Are you leaving?
She's really worried about that, isn't she? I feel a bit more confident about one thing as I shake my head.
No. I won't go anywhere.
Okay, that's all Aspen needed to know. She needed to know what direction this conversation is going. Like, are you going to tell us, like, hey, I can't do this whole human thing anymore? Okay, so we have to go to the botanical garden. I'm guessing we're going to go to the grave, and we're going to talk about that more. Yeah, okay. We'll have this conversation, and maybe after that, we'll stop the video. There's so much in this video to digest. It's like, it's not really been that long, per se. But it's like, gosh dang, this is some heavy conversations. After getting back to the library, I made the same request to Juliet about being able to talk together. Not only did she agree, she suggested that we go somewhere else just for a change of pace. We shared a quiet taxi ride to Botanic Garden. Not far from Cassette's grave, neither of us tried to talk, which suited me fine. I spent the whole ride trying to figure out what to say. I imagine Juliet did the same thing. Taxi driver drops us as close to the entrance as possible, tipping his hat and thanks as Juliet pays him before driving off, leaving the two of us mostly alone. There are a few people around, but more of them are leaving than entering at the same time of the evening. One of those people, a figure sitting on the bench, reading, stands up and approaches us. When they step into the light, it turns out to be Aspen.
It's certainly a new feeling to be the one waiting, instead of waited for. Hi, Aspen.
Good evening, Aspen. I hope we didn't keep you waiting for long.
No, not at all. Besides, I can hardly complain when it gives me an opportunity to catch up on some reading. I thought about exploring the gardens a little, but I wasn't sure I'd be able to find my way back out.
There are worse places to be lost, at least. Thank you for indulging my request to come here in the first place.
It was a good idea. Not to say the library's gotten boring, but we never really go anywhere else.
I feel a lot better now than I did this morning, at least enough to make a couple of jokes. A lot of things still weigh heavily on my mind, but I'm determined not to just be an emotionless rock. That wouldn't help anyone.
Precisely. I've never been here before either, so I'm eager to see the gardens.
It's been a while since I've been here myself, but I believe I remember a nice spot I used to visit with.
Instead of finishing her sentence, Juliet simply begins walking. Her cane makes a steady click, click sound as it taps against the stone path. Aspen reads off some of the signs that we passed by, signs which, of course, I never get a second glance at.
Stonebridge Gully. That sounds rather poetic. Perhaps I'll use it in a story sometime. Ah, Pine Hill Path too. Whoever named these gardens was having fun, weren't they?
Juliet still seems preoccupied, not ignoring us, but seeming to pay much attention. Not seeming to pay much attention either. She does wait while Aspen pauses to read one of the big signs that talk about the garden. She writes a little bit in her notebook, then scurries back to us.
Sorry, one of the photos there caught my eye, and I wanted to take some notes for further research.
Well, Aspen's having a good time.
I hadn't realized there was more to this park than just this one garden.
Really? Like what?
There's an old estate for one thing. Also another garden just for native plants. There's even a cemetery not far away that's apparently part of it.
Yeah. Teddy Rue and Juliet's cane misses a beat, but she keeps walking. Oh boy. That feels bad. After a short uphill stroll, we reach our destination. Oh, this is lovely. I like this a lot. This is a really cool, like, kind of area right here. This would be a nice place to sit down and just contemplate life. Small brick path juts off the main road, leading to an overlook covered by a glass roof. There are a handful of benches around, but all of them are unoccupied.
Would this do?
Oh, Juliet. It's breathtaking.
I have to agree. Aspen walks slowly to the edge of the overlook, pressing a hand against the glass as she looks over the view. I stand beside her and do the same. We're up higher than I thought, with a good view of the rest of the Botanic Garden from here. I even spot the main gate. Far across, the same rolling green hills I noticed a couple days ago tower over us. Though she smiles, Juliet doesn't join us, instead of sitting down on one of the benches.
What do you think, Miho? How does it compare to some of the sights you've seen?
It's pretty nice. I like the view from up on Mount Victoria better, though.
Oh, it's been quite a while since I went up there. Perhaps I should see it myself sometime and compare.
I don't know, Aspen, sounds like you need to get out more.
You should. You can see the library from the top. I used to go up there to clear my head, before I started living at the library.
I'll be sure to invite you along, then.
She lingers for just a moment more, gazing at the darkening sky before taking a seat on the bench across from Juliet. Only I stay standing, pacing back and forth. Despite the pleasant chattering just a moment ago, now that we're all here and settled, both Aspen and Juliet sit quietly but unexpectedly waiting for me to speak first. Since I was the one who asked them to come here, it falls to me to start the conversation, but where to even begin? I've been thinking about that all day, but I've decided that maybe I should just start from the beginning, the very beginning.
I never told you anything about my person, right? About Changin.
Both shake their heads. Taking a deep breath and clearing my throat, I close my eyes and cast my mind back to the forest all those years ago.
I was just a regular fox back then. I don't know how old I was. Foxes don't think like that. All we know about is eating snacks and lying in the sun. That was all I really did, all day long. No hobbies or jobs or responsibilities. Just existing. I knew what humans were in the same way I knew what leopards and bears were. Big and scary and something to avoid. It was rare to see one in the forest, but it happened. Most of the time, they were noisy enough that you could hear them coming from far away and hide. That was the first thing that was different about my person, Tongin. I was taking a nap in one of my favorite spots, an old log that had fallen over. Tongin came all the way over and sat down before they woke me up. And when they did, I panicked. I ran and hid as fast as I could. I think they were surprised too. They didn't try to catch me or stop me. Instead, they kept their distance and tossed me a little bit of the meat they were eating. I didn't trust them and didn't know why they were sharing, but it smelled pretty good. So I grabbed the food and ran away, and eventually they left. When I went back to my log the next day, Tongin showed up again too. I ran away again, but they still didn't chase me and let me come back on my own. We did the same thing the next day, and the next day, and the next. Then, one day, I was in a new part of the forest. I liked wandering around even as a fox. I wasn't paying attention to where I was going, when suddenly, it felt like my leg was on fire. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I'd walked right into a trap that a hunter left. I couldn't move as much as I tried, and it's still the scariest thing that ever happened to me. I was sure I was gonna die. Finally, Tongin showed up. At first, I thought they were there to finish me off. Instead, they were worried for me. They knelt down and got my foot out of the trap, and then wrapped it with a part of their shirt to stop it from bleeding. That was when I finally figured out they weren't going to hurt me. I kept going to the grove to see them, and they kept being there. I let them get close enough to touch me after that. Still, they didn't do it much. It was only to check on my leg and make sure it was healing okay. One day I went, and they were waiting like always, but they brought a lot more food than usual. And they gave it all to me, hardly eating anything themselves. After I was finished, we sat together for a while. They sat on my log, and I laid in the grass nearby. Finally, they got up like usual and set two things on the ground. One was a bag of food, the same as they had just given me. The other was a little paper scroll. They patted me on the head for the first and only time. Then, they left our grove. At the time, I didn't think that day was anything special, other than the extra snacks, but it was the last time I'd ever see them. When I came back the next day, they weren't there. I waited, just in case they were late, but they never showed up. The scroll they left and some of the food were still there. Other animals had taken a lot of the food, but they didn't want the paper. I took the scroll with me when I left. I didn't know what it was, but it was theirs, so it had to be important. My only option was to carry it in my mouth. I went back again the next day, expecting them to show up, but they never did. I don't know how many more days it took before I realized they weren't coming back. Once I did, it was all I could think about. I kept looking for them, but I couldn't find them, as much as I wanted to.
So I'm not saying much, I just kind of want to hear her thoughts on it and what happened.
I didn't even know why I wanted to see them so badly. Just that I did. While I was thinking about that, I started to choke. Something came out of nowhere and was stuck in my throat.
Was it her bead necklace?
Finally, I coughed it up. A bead. I'd never seen it before, and definitely never swallowed it. I left it and went back to my den, but it was waiting for me there too. No matter where I went, it was always waiting. So finally, I touched it with my nose. Everything after that happened so fast. 1 second I was there, just a normal fox.
the next, I was in this new form, not sure how or why. Some things came to me naturally, like using my new body and walking on 2 feet, and even how to turn back into a fox, but I still thought like an animal and acted like one. I didn't know any words that I could even think with. I had to learn those, and all kinds of other human behaviors the hard way, after getting chased away from villages and strangers that I met. Over time, I learned how to hide and blend in, and steal, and just how to survive.
Yeah, it's interesting. She talks about like still acting like an animal. I suppose that would be how an animal would act after turning into a human. Maybe some of their thoughts would change with their new body, right? But in the end, they would just try to do what foxes do, right? Blend in, maybe steal, just survive, right? That's what an animal does. They don't really think of other things as people's property. They don't care. I opened the log back. It's interesting though. I wonder like what necessarily the intention was. I think this was a gift, right, from this person who really cared about this fox that they met. They showed the fox kindness, and they really saw the fox start to open up to them over time. And Miho, I feel like that was really one of the first connections she probably ever had with something, right? Like this was the first time that she had something that wasn't just thinking of like an animal. It was something that truly was more than just thinking about herself. She was thinking about somebody else.
I followed Jungin's scent all the way to the ocean. I'd never seen so much water, not even close. I had no idea how huge it was. I boarded a ship like Jungin had, not knowing that it would take me somewhere different than the one they took. And I've been looking for them ever since.
When I open my eyes again, they're heavy with tears, but this time I don't try to hide them. I didn't mean to talk for so long, but once I started remembering everything else just came naturally. Turning to Aspen and Juliet, I can see that they're crying too.
Miho. They sound like they were a wonderful person.
I can see why you never stopped searching for them. They were truly special, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they really were.
Remembering how their hand felt on my head and the softness of their touch as they inspected my leg, those thoughts hurt as much as the hunter's trap did, but also they make me smile too. I'm often worried that they might have forgotten about me, but I don't think they did. They only knew me as a fox before I had any magic, so their memories should have stayed intact. Those days weren't long, but they were special. To me, I hope to Jong-in too. So I don't want to let them become painful memories. I want to smile when I think about them.
Anyway, I'm sorry for getting so mad at you yesterday, Juliet. And for how I acted this morning with you, Aspen. I know that you both just wanted to keep me from getting hurt, but that's another thing too. It feels like you're always looking after me, or taking care of me. There are lots of things I'm still learning, but I'm not weak. I've taken care of myself for a long time, you know? So, I don't want it to be like that anymore. I want you to be honest with me from now on. Both of you. Even if it's something that would make me sad or angry, I promise that I won't run away without saying anything. I won't just disappear no matter what happens. Because if we're really friends, then we should trust each other, right? That's one of the things I've learned.
Well, look at that. Look at that. They're really starting to build bonds here. This is something that the old Miho would have never done. I think this is a turning point. Having said everything I wanted to, I finally sit down, taking a spot between the two of them, just like at breakfast every morning. For a second, the three of us sit there quietly, then Juliet begins to speak.
I hear what you say, Miho. And I agree. You're not the only one still learning things, you know? I have a long way to go to. For years, I felt it for the best to remain open, but guarded. If I maintained a comfortable distance, even from those I call my dearest friends, then I would be protecting myself by never getting to know anyone too well. By withholding any meaningful details of my life, I thought to avoid the pain of loss again. But all I've done is keep myself from experiencing that joy of companionship again. I'm not too experienced when it comes to being honest myself. Or perhaps only honest to a point. But you're right, Miho. That isn't how it should be. From here on out, I'll endeavor to be more open, more real, with both of you. For myself, and for you.
Juliet looks in our direction, but in particular at Aspen right now.
As such, Aspen, there's something that I'd like to tell you.
She begins telling Aspen about Cassette in much the same way she told me yesterday. I sit quietly and think about what she said. Hearing Juliet describe herself reminds me of me. In the end, we've always been running away, haven't we? Despite how perfect and put together Juliet always seems, she's always been struggling just as much. She was just better at hiding it than me. As Juliet recounts the vow she made in honor of Cosette, I see Aspen is listening with rapt attention like when she's getting really absorbed in one of her books. When Juliet finishes her story, both of them have to wipe their eyes. Aspen rummages around in her bag and pulls out a small pack of tissues, offering one to Juliet before noisily blowing her nose and wiping her eyes.
God, that's certainly a lot to take in.
Yeah, gosh, this is just a sad conversation.
Thank you for telling me, though. Cosette sounds like she was a wonderful person, just like Johnine. I wish I could have met her.
I wish you could have as well. She would have had endless stories to recount. And I know she would have loved to share them.
As for all the other stuff, first of all, I promise, to both of you, I want us to be truly friends as well. I don't have anything quite so dramatic in my past, but I certainly know how it feels to be performative. I can hardly fault you for curating your self-image when I do the same thing. It's kind of funny, actually, and a little scary to hear you talk about Cosette and Zhongyin, because as someone who will one day be past tense, I often wonder about how I'll be remembered when I'm gone. Not that I expect that to be any time soon, but still, I hope that someone speaks of me just as fondly someday. There will be more than enough time for me to worry about that in the future, though. Right now, I'm glad we had this conversation. It was worth the near panic attack I had earlier, wondering what would be said tonight.
Me too. I still have a lot to think about, and I'm still sad. But I don't want to be sad forever. I know it's not what they would have wanted for me either. But I do know that I'm lucky I met you two, and that you're my friends. I want it to stay like that.
My cheeks burned from saying something like that out loud for the first time ever, and I liked saying it because it's true. Although I'd already made up my mind to stay, it's sitting here in the middle of the gardens that I know I made the right decision. For all the doubts I had, for all the struggles, I'm thankful that it happened, and I can finally admit that to myself. Maybe it won't turn out the way I expected, but for once I'm content with my life right now.
Well said. And don't worry, Miho. We're not going anywhere.
Even if it's not always perfect, it doesn't need to be, just like Juliet.
Oh, Miho, I'm glad too. The first time you stepped into the Bell House was one of the luckiest days of my life.
All I have to do is keep trying, like Aspen. So maybe another first time would be appropriate. Hopping up from the bench, I grab Aspen's hand and Juliet's hand and pull them to their feet too. Oh. Wholesome AF. Then spreading my arms as wide as I can, I pull them both into a hug. Without hesitation, I feel them embrace me in return. From that day at the cafe all the way to now, it's chilly out here in the gardens in the evening cool evening air, but it is warm in Aspen and Juliet's arms, and I smile to myself and to them, to anyone who may be watching.
Mine too.
After spending a bit more time walking around the gardens last night, Juliet and I went back to the library, and Aspen took us back to her apartment. Once we got back, I fell asleep almost immediately. My brain finally gets relief from all the emotions the last few days. In the morning, once I go downstairs for breakfast, it's pleasantly familiar. Toast, eggs, and fruit like always, and conversation about books and work in Wellington. Okay, we ended here. I think this has been quite the episode. Lots of, we went from, happy to sad to angry to sad to happy. Lots of emotions, lots of conversations that were good, but I really, really, really enjoyed this episode. This was probably one of my favorites I've had since we started the game. I think this was really good. But we'll end it here. We'll leave on a high note, okay? And I'm sure next episode will be great too. So lot was said and talked about here. I think it kind of speaks for itself, so I won't bore you guys with my ending for too long. But anyways, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and I hope to see you in the next one.